So, dear friends, over these last few days, we've been listening to readings from St. Paul's letter to the Romans, which is full of wonderful meditations. Today's reading is particularly human. Keep in mind, St. Paul is a saint. He is a saint, a saintly man who will die as a martyr in Rome. He will be beheaded. He has suffered all sorts of shipwreck and scourgings and been kicked out of towns and been stoned. They thought he was dead. They stoned him, and when he came to, he went right back into the city and started preaching again. This guy was incredible. And yet, he writes today, with the result that, here we go, instead of doing the good things I want to do, I carry out the sinful things I do not want to do. We went to a conference there in the States last year, and there was an American priest from New York who quoted this line, and he said, the things I don't want to do, I do. And the things that, how does it go again? It was class the way he said it. I don't want to do the things I don't want to do, I do, and the things I do want to do, I don't do. So anyway, get the point. So it's just interesting, like this guy is a saint. So he's a saint, and yet he's saying, the things I don't want to do, I end up doing. And the things I don't want to do, I do. Keep in mind again, he is a saint. But there are things that he's getting wrong, and he knows that he's not supposed to do them, but he's doing them anyway. Now, this is, of course, never a justification of sin. So then do what you like, and we'll all become saints anyway. Of course not. What I'm saying is, he recognizes that there are things in him that are imperfect. That there are things in him that need to change. And yet he struggles to change them, or to do them, or to put them into practice. Okay, so I think this should give us great hope. Because what is the point then? The point isn't that we attain perfection this side of eternity, because that's going to be almost impossible, fairly close to impossible. I think for most of us, fairly likely to be impossible that we're going to attain perfection this side of eternity. So what is the point then? The point is that we do actually try to fight bravely. Like fight against these temptations or against these weaknesses of character, or in circumstances where people are challenging or difficult, that we choose to be charitable, loving, merciful as much as we can. You know, I mean, we sometimes there are certain people that are kind of challenging, and being with them is like being underwater. You know, you can do it for a certain amount of time, and then you just have to go and breathe, you know? Even just choosing virtue, choosing to do the right thing, choosing to be charitable. Sometimes we can do it for a certain amount of time, and then maybe we have to just go away and breathe, you know? I'm always, I think I said this last week, but St. Teresa of Lisieux, when you look at St. Teresa's story of a soul, there's a danger, just because she's French and because of the way she writes and because of her age. She was quite young. She died at 24. What she writes can sound very sentimental. You know what I mean? And we just skip into Jesus' arms like a little bunny, and you go, oh, bless, wow, yeah, that's really what I want to do, skip into Jesus' arms like a bunny. Yeah, it makes me feel really manly. But I heard someone commenting, and I thought they were very right. They said, if you think what St. Teresa of Lisieux writes is sentimental and it's all fluffy and flowery, which it is a bit, the way she writes is a bit flowery and poetic and all that kind of thing. If you think it's all sentimental, do it. Do it, and you'll see how hard it is. Like, do it, and you'll see it really requires that you, for those of us who are men, really requires that you man up. Like, to choose to love people who you find challenging, to choose to overcome your own will. Like, there was one particular sister who used to drive her mad, drive everyone mad. She was just completely cantankerous, and no matter what you gave her, she was always, this isn't the right saucer for this cup at all, bless us and save us. His tea is half cold. You know, everything was wrong. Nothing could ever be up to her standards. And St. Teresa would go in, and she would just, you know, she found this sister as annoying as everyone else did. Because, you know, people who can't be pleased, they're irritating to be with, because nothing is ever good enough. So, and she'd serve her, and she'd say, yes, of course, I'll heat up your tea, and of course, I'll get the other saucer, and of course, so she tried to do whatever she could to appease this sister. And then the sister one day asked her, she said, what is it you like about me so much? You always seem so joyful when you come in. If you only knew. You hag, sure, look. You know, I mean, so I mean, if you think that what she's writing is all sentimentalism, well, actually, right, go do it, and you'll see that it requires an interior death to self. Do you know what I mean? You think it's easy? Okay, go do it. Go do it. So, again, St. Paul's saying here, instead of doing the things I want to do, I carry out the sinful things I don't want to do. I want to be charitable. I want to be loving. And sometimes I fall short of the mark. Sometimes I don't make it. Sometimes I fall way short. Sometimes I fail completely. So, but he's trying. He's trying. And the following day he'll get up and he'll try again. And the following day then he'll go into a city where he may be made welcome, or he may be stoned or flogged or kicked out. And then he'll engage in dangerous journeys across seas and stormy waters and be shipwrecked. And then be taken to Rome and know what's going to happen. I mean, this isn't going to end well, but for the name of Jesus, this is what I'll do. If it requires the shedding of my blood, so I'll do it. So, I mean, he gets an awful lot right, but he is aiming for perfection. So that's the difference maybe. He's aiming for perfection, and maybe he's getting that far. Whereas if we're not aiming for perfection, just aiming to kind of pass, then maybe we're only down there in the spiritual life. Whereas he's aiming for perfection, and that's why even his smallest. Remember, he was a well-trained Pharisee beforehand, so he knew the law very well. So the Pharisees were just obsessed with obeying rules and getting everything right. So he would have had a very high standard for himself, and so should we for ourselves. We should have a high standard. We're aiming to be saints. So the standard is very high. So even if we don't fully make it, even if we only make 95%, that's still pretty good. Whereas if we're not aiming to be saints, we're just aiming to, sure, look, we'll see, we'll do our bit, we'll do a little bit, sure, look, we'll see how it goes, you know what I mean? As they would say in Ireland, be grand, you know what I mean? Which means I aim to do nothing. Be grand, sure. If we're aiming for a be grand kind of sanctity, then if we don't quite make that, we might find ourselves quite low on the spectrum, which isn't good. Two things to help us attain this kind of sanctity that hopefully we're aiming for, to help us attain perfection that we're aiming for. First thing, obviously, is God's grace. We need God's help. So in order to attain sanctity, we must have a strong prayer life, which means a personal relationship with the Lord. Not just turning up when we have to, not just going to Sunday Mass, but actually drawing from this fountain repeatedly and daily. And the more you find yourself falling in sinful things that you don't want to, the more we need to be coming here. No point sitting down there giving out to yourself, I'm so bad, I'm just the worst, no one wants to be like me, sure, I'll never make it, sure, I'm useless. That's not helping. In fact, if anything, that's actually giving more ammunition to the enemy who wants to dishearten you. Discouragement is a weapon of the enemy. So discouragement is something that the enemy wants to do. He wants to discourage you so you give up. Okay, so giving out to yourself for falling short of the mark doesn't help. But when you fall short of the mark, it's like with anything, any training for anything, for boxing, running, weightlifting, what else do you do? Guitar, right? When you mess up a chord and you get a buzzy string, you go, I'm the worst guitarist in the world, and just stop playing and hang up the guitar. Like, no, you practice. You keep playing the chord that you can't play in order that you can learn to play it. If you're boxing against someone who's longer arms than you and you have to learn how to dodge better, okay, keep practicing dodging. You practice the things that you're bad at. You don't have to practice things that you're good at. You already have those. Practice the areas that you're bad at. So we need God's grace to stop us, to prevent us from giving up. And also then, it means that because of my failure, I come back to the Lord. Rather than because of my failure, I run from him. If because of my failure, I run from him, now the enemy has won. If because of my failure, I come back to the Lord, the failure wasn't ideal. We're not recommending sin ever. But if it means that I've come back to the Lord, now I've gained some profit from it. So this is very, very important in the spiritual life. When we fall, that we come back to the Lord. The enemy, of course, will say, when you fall, oh, look at you. You should be ashamed of yourself. And your mother now, and all the prayers she prayed for you, and look at you, you dirty little. And that's it then, you see. Then, oh, yeah, you're right, I shouldn't come back to Mass. I probably shouldn't pray. I shouldn't go to Medjugorje this summer. I'm not like them. They're all holy. That's not me. I'm just going to, and go off to your little dark corner. That's exactly what the enemy wants. Rather than saying, I have fallen short of the mark, I come back to you, Lord, and I ask for your forgiveness, and I implore your mercy, and I dive into your mercy, and I'm sorry. I'm going to try again. And I guarantee you that, fortunately or unfortunately, you will have another opportunity to practice virtue in that same kind of scenario, probably within 24 hours. If there's someone irritating in your life, they're still there. They're going to be there tomorrow morning as well. So you're going to have another opportunity presented to you on a golden platter. Now do the right thing. Don't do what you did yesterday. Get it right today. Is there anything else I can do? Can I go to Medjugorje instead? Because no. This is where you will grow in virtue right now. So that's the thing. It's to be aware that when we fall short of the mark, you will be given another opportunity. You will, probably within 24 hours. For most of the things that we struggle with, probably within 24 minutes. Right? If you struggle with with sarcasm or criticism or negativity, constantly negative about everyone around you and everything around you, you will be given another opportunity within 20 minutes to say, well done. Wasn't that fantastic? Thank you so much for doing that. What a beautiful day. I love the trees. I love flowers and butterflies and unicorns. You'll have plenty of opportunity to say something positive. You will, within 24 minutes. Never mind 24 hours. So that's one thing. Coming back to the Lord in prayer, coming back to the Lord in humility, coming back to the Lord in repentance if we fall short of the mark. Second thing, very, very important for the spiritual journey, is other people, so that we are accountable. Okay? It's difficult to go on the spiritual journey on your own, because if we start to fall short of the mark, nobody might notice really. No one might really call us out. And then little by little, and this I think happened to us as a whole nation in Ireland, our standard of Catholicism was dropping. So instead of, when I was a kid, Sunday Mass was almost universal for practically everybody, except that one family down the end of the street. Everyone knows the Kellys don't go to Mass. The Kellys, they don't go to Mass at all. Everyone knew. Not only was Sunday Mass a thing, Family Rosary would have been, it existed a bit generation before me, far more common. But there were even things like Sunday devotions, Corpus Christi processions. So the whole town would seize up with this huge procession for Corpus Christi, right? So, but little by little, the standard of faith, not just the standard of cultural practice, the standard of faith was dropping. But we had nothing to compare it to. At least up north, they have more of a Protestant population there, so you can always compare yourself to other religions. Same in the States. The Catholic Church could always compare, which is a minority in the States, could always compare itself to what the Protestant Church is doing. If their numbers are growing, or what are we doing wrong? So there was always something to compare themselves to. For us, there wasn't really. Everything was Catholic. So then the standard was actually dropping with no point of comparison and no one to call us higher. And then all of a sudden you find ourselves in the 2000s, and faith, the Catholic faith, as in belief in Jesus Christ and who he is now chronically low. Vocations are through the floor, 2% of what they used to be in the 60s. And we're kind of scratching our heads going, how did it come to this? Well, the faith, lived relationship with Jesus Christ is practically gone. So unless we tackle that, our relationship with the Lord, and witness to that out in the world, then of course the faith is going to, what is the faith otherwise if it's not a relationship with the Lord? Then the whole faith starts to drop, and we find ourselves in this point of crisis, still kind of scratching our heads. And I won't get lost. I won't go down that rabbit hole. We'll talk about that some other time. Okay, so accountability. There is a tribe in Kenya called the Maasai, Maasai tribe. You can Google it afterwards. And they're serious dudes. Now, what they do is they wait until a pride of lions has attacked a gazelle or something, right? When they've taken the gazelle down, they wait for about 5 minutes until the lion has it properly killed and maybe a bit torn apart. And then 4 or 5 of them, armed only with machetes, walk towards the gazelle. But in a line, all together, fairly close, and just with confidence, beeline towards the dead gazelle that the lions are eating. And when the lions see these dudes coming, they run away. Probably kind of confused. Why are we running away? I'm not sure. We're running away because, these guys aren't exactly bigger than us. They definitely look confident. But they don't have guns, they have machetes, so you can only kill within that distance. Like, I mean, incredible. They walk over, they get over to the dead gazelle, they start chopping it up, and then they just walk away with a shank of gazelle for dinner. Serious. But it would only work if they work together. So 4 or 5 of them walking together, beeline for the gazelle. You can't have one kind of hanging behind, shooting their own team. You can't. Everyone has to walk in a straight line together. And it's that unity that means they can take on a pride of lions and go home with dinner. Incredible. The power of unity. The power of unity. If we want to excel in the spiritual journey, we need to be accountable. So it's good if there's someone in our lives who can call us out and say, you're great, you're wonderful, you're marvelous, and all that kind of thing, but there's just this little thing that's it's not going to work for you. Now, you obviously still have to take that to prayer yourself and see if there's truth behind it, but it is good to have someone who we have to be accountable to. Otherwise, our standard might start dropping, and we can still say, well, at least I'm not as bad as them, the Kellys, who don't go to Mass at all. Or I'm not as bad as Hitler. I'm not as bad as Hitler. I'm not even close. There, now, not as bad as Hitler. Pure delight with myself. Do you know what I mean? Like, if that's our standard, don't be as bad as Hitler. Bless us and save us. We're aiming not to be the worst, as opposed to aiming for greatness. Since when did aiming not to be the worst ever become anybody's goal? I'm not the worst. That's never a goal in life, instead of striving to be like a hero. So, in our spiritual journey, dear brothers and sisters, let us never give in to discouragement. When we fall, as we will, as the saints did, and as St. Paul did repeatedly, according to his own account here, let us come back to the Lord with humility. And secondly, let us welcome people in our lives who will hold us accountable to a higher standard, who will hold us accountable to even just doing the things that we've said we'll do, which is what we try to do here in community. And then we'll see the depth of our spirituality growing. We'll see that when we fall, we don't get discouraged. We're annoyed at ourselves, yes, but we come back to the Lord, come back to Him. And then, God willing, when we find ourselves before Him in heaven, we'll know that everything we've done, everything we've achieved, every virtue that we have lived was due to His grace. And because of that, we will rejoice in His presence forever. Amen.